Started for the RTA Transit Authority. I'm gaveling us into order. All right, for the October 2019 Raleigh Transit Authority, thank you all for coming and attending and being here for us to get some business done. To start, I'm going to do introductions down the table and allow everyone to introduce each other, starting with Karen.
Karen Ringe.
Michael Stevenson.
Nathan Spencer.
Linda Wire.
Daniel Coleman.
Morris Cook.
Christopher Jones.
David Eatman. All right. Next, any additions, revisions to the agenda? One addition I'm going to have is I'm going to move to have some recognitions right up front. So we'll have that before or as part of the chairman's report. Anyone else have anything that they need or want? All right. Minutes, anyone will do the minutes and then we'll get into the chairman's report. Anyone have comments, questions about minutes? Everyone read them? All right. All those in favor to approve the minutes, say aye.
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 Sorry, Linda is right. I forgot to ask if someone would make a motion.
I make a motion we approve the minutes.
Second.
All right. And vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We'll start with David on recognition.
Thank you. So today we have recognition of two well-known former board members, Ray Magnasock and Mr. Jason Horn. And so again, we in proper form, as we have with all of our long-standing board members. For those in the audience that may not know, our board members have the opportunity to serve 3 two-year terms. At times, that can be time-consuming, and quite honestly, the decisions that you make are very important and can be quite challenging. We have, many things ahead, and we've had many things in our past that have required a lot of thought. So with that, I was going to present these plaques. We'll start with Mr. Ray Magnasock. In appreciation of his dedicated service on behalf of the Raleigh Transit Authority, June 19th, 2013 through June 13th, 13 through June 13th, 2019. So very good long tenure there. Some of these you'll notice are a little bit over 6 years. If anyone starts in a role as an alternate, that doesn't count towards their 6-year term. So some people can actually get into the 7-year time frame depending upon how board members rotate off. So with that, I'm going to ask Mr. Ray Magnasock to come down, and we certainly want to recognize him and say thank him for all of his service and participation in the Raleigh Transit Authority.
I don't want to steal his thunder, so I'm going to say thank you very much. Thank you all for actually your help, because I was, first time I got into the RUT committee, I was a little lost for a while, but you all helped me out in that one. And thank you, staff. Thank you, David. Thank you, staff, for all the hard work you've done.
Thank you, Ray, for all of your service and your sacrifice on this board.
Well, I guess the only thing that sometimes can be a little more challenging than being a board member is being the chairman of a board. And so certainly with that, we have Mr. Jason Horn. Jason Horn, chairman, in appreciation of your honorable service on behalf of the Raleigh Transit Authority, March 18th, 2013 through June 13th, 2019. So we have this, again, nice plaque for Jason. Since Jason had done this quite a few times, we actually gave him his gavel, are giving him his gavel, along with Raleigh Transit Authority, Jason Horn Chairman, along with his tenure in service, so that he will be able to keep order at home forever. So
Good luck with that.
I'll ask Mr. Jason Horn to please come up, say a few words, and receive his plaque and his appreciation. And Jason has backup today.
Thank you, sir. Oh, check it out.
Just slightly used. So.
Yeah. I'm not going to try to gavel my wife to order.
The baby's gonna take the gavel then.
I wouldn't.
I would go. Yeah.
You've got to hold that.
I'll hold the gavel. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Yeah. So I had planned to go to work today, and then in my idle moments, I was going to, jot a few things down to see. And then my daughter got sick this morning, and so all I've been doing this morning is playing with blocks. So I have to improvise, but that's fine. I miss you all. I miss being involved with this. It was a singular pleasure to be able to serve the city and to work beside such capable, competent folks as yourself, and obviously capable, competent staff that has really just done some amazing things. I'm proud of everything we've done today. While I was involved with it, I have one minor regret, which I'll share privately later. No big deal. But I thank you all for being as interested and as dedicated as you were, and as you will continue to be to the cause of transit and to the cause of the city of Raleigh. Thank you all. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
I'd like to just say a couple things. I had a chance to work with Jason for a couple years on this board, and it was a real pleasure. And you've been real welcoming, keeping on top of things. I know you're very passionate about transit, and we still want you to be involved. I mean, you and Ray both. I mean, please keep coming to the public meetings. There's going to be so many of them, and we really would appreciate your input. And also, I just wanted to say it was really a pleasure to work with somebody who always added good humor to what sometimes could be a dry meeting.
Sure.
So.
Thank you, Karen.
So please keep coming back, you too.
I'll tell a very short story that when I moved down here in 2013, I think I came to one public meeting, ran into you, stalked you, got your info, got drinks with you, and you mentioned the Transit Authority, and I said, this is something I really want to do. This sounds amazing. And then life got in the way, and for years I didn't. And I regret that I didn't at that time. I'm very excited that I got a chance to serve with you. Your leadership was amazing, and we very much, you brought us to the point at where we're moving now, and I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. This really has been a pleasure.
All right. In terms of Chairman's report, Guadalupe was unable to make today's meeting. I my only piece on that for us is I'm glad that we're together today. It's been a little while since we've moved on items, and we have quite a bit backed up. I hope that we, in the coming year, we're able to continue to work together and get stuff moving, because there's a lot of pressure on us and there's a lot expected. So I'm looking forward to working more with all of you in the coming year, including Guadalupe, who is your chair as well. All right, moving on. The first committee is Route Committee. Route Committee did not meet in October. We kept with what was on the docket from the month before, which we still need to vote on, which was our line report and recommendations. Linda, do you and Danny were at that meeting. Do you mind if I give the report as well?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So we've gone through, and I gave this report as well at the last meeting before, but we had the opportunity, excuse me, we had the opportunity to look and pick through the R-line plans multiple times. Morgan has gone through and expressly shown that both in this body, where we've looked at the revisioning, as well as in that committee. The committee met, questions quite a bit about it, and looked at the work that that both Ray and Jason, as well as others, had put in on that. As overall, the committee moved to suggest that the new route be the candy cane that was suggested in the option, I believe it was number 4, that would get a faster service around downtown. It would still remain for the time being as free. That the area in which it turns around be lowered towards the convention center as well, but that it would still touch the specific areas. The other thing that the committee recommended was that the staff begin exploring an evening e-cab service for downtown. So when bus service ends at 8 p.m., and a piloted e-cab service would begin in the coming, once that is put together with staff, it would require another vote from us to actually implement it. So they're going to put together the data on it and come to us and let us see and pick through that as well, which I'm sure Morgan is looking forward to. And then we will be able to, at that point, make a decision of whether we want to move forward fully with a later night ECAP. If the board is accepting, because we've seen that presentation quite a few times, if it's accepting to move forward with a vote, I'd like to make a motion to move forward to the staff's recommendation of that option of bus service throughout the day with a exploration by staff into ECAB with the board's participation.
I second it, as long as the motion that you're making corresponds to the actual action that we're promoting. Okay. Not having Morgan's up here with the 2 and the 3 and all that stuff.
Which is option 4, which we have gone over multiple times.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other discussion? Yeah.
Yeah, and I may have missed a presentation. I recall one where we looked at multiple options.
Yep.
I don't know how many.
Yep.
They raised a number of questions in my mind, and so I can't specifically recall. I kind of remember a candy cane option, but I did have a number of questions that kind of go to the original intent and purpose of the R line, and which is now, over a decade longer. So my questions have to do with that.
Okay.
Where are we now in terms of downtown Raleigh? Who are the communities it's serving? And so I wouldn't be ready to vote yes.
Okay.
Because
Do you
in
want to
my
see a
own mind-
presentation on that?
we may not need to take up the whole committee's time, but I just wouldn't be ready to personally move ahead on that.
Mr. Chair, and I appreciate that, Michael, but I have been at multiple presentations about this. The staff has been waiting, and there was a robust engagement process, and we still have to take this to community input. So this is not the final. This is really moving the process along. And since we didn't even meet in this month, in deference to your questions, I feel like we have got to move this along.
Mr. Chairman.
So.
If I may, just real quick, just for clarification, from where we are in our process, the board is, or the statement said so far 100% correct. This would actually give staff authorization to start public participation, as well as bringing that public participation back to the board for consideration, as well as the board would have to have also a final public hearing before any actual change were made. So this just allows us to take a concept and move that into a public participation realm, as well as having those formal processes completed also before a final implementation were made. So again, we think that we are very, that we have a good product, and that it will meet many of the objectives set out originally, as well as new ones. But certainly there's also, great opportunity left for, or actually, a lot of opportunity left for public input, as we'll just be starting that process. I just want to make that clarification.
There is a motion on the table. Is there any other discussion? Yes.
I just wanted to say to Michael that some of the things that your reservations were discussed, and this is a very dynamic proposal, not a static one, recognizing that the whole downtown picture is changing rapidly. So, there's a little bit of something that you're requesting in it, but not wanting to go back through that whole presentation and discussion. I don't have a problem with your vote, but I'm going to support it, as I did at the route committee also.
And also, just one thing to note, we're really only talking about a plan for the R line for the next few years, because as we move forward with BRT, we know that this is, and more advancement on the downtown transportation plan, things are going to continue to change. So this is really kind of just a bridge period.
Right.
I appreciate the clarifications, and I just don't want to be in a position of endorsing something that I don't feel informed about, that's all.
No, and that's fair. That's perfectly fair. Okay, if there is no more discussion, I'm going to move for a vote. All those in favor of moving forward and allowing staff to take this forward and start the engagement process, say aye.
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 All those in against?
I'm just going to abstain.
Oh, and
He's not
abstains?
against.
Not against.
Okay. All right. The motion passes. I appreciate the clarification. All right. So the next item on the docket is Western Boulevard Corridor Study.
I have Het has actually been heading up a lot of our our BRT effort. But this particular item really is just an informational item. We had hoped, or if things had gone as planned, we'd have been presenting some information back from our first meeting. But we had a small storm called Dorian, which threatened us, and very thankfully was not a major impact, but did actually delay our Western Boulevard corridor meeting that was scheduled that night. So with that, I have some new information, and I think that it's actually within your packet as well. The Western Boulevard corridor study will be held at the McKimmon Center on November 12th, and that will be from 4 p.m. until 8 p.m.
What page is that, David, in our packet?
I'd have to look like you. I'm sorry. We
I
can.
think it's
I'll
down
get
at the
that
back.
before you leave. Somebody can tell us.
Is that the back?
I think it's, yeah, it is, oh, maybe not.
Okay.
Just put it in your.
Somebody will tell us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll find out, and if not, then we'll actually get the postcard out to everyone.
And it's in the
I don't think
email.
it's in there. The flyer was just finalized yesterday, so
Okay.
I'll send it to CJ and she can send it out to the group.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. So, so we'll get that information out. Please share that with your friends. Send that out to email lists that may be interested as that process gets underway. It's actually underway from an existing conditions report standpoint. So certainly not making any decisions, but inventory of existing conditions within the corridor. So we'll have a variety of information available at that meeting coming up on November 12th. So that is the report for that item.
All right. With route completed, finance and policy. Michael, do you want to lead us on that?
I will give a summary, but I think is staff prepared to make more detailed presentations?
Matthew is ready with his presentation. I actually think his presentation is very informative.
Yep.
You can tell him to fast forward or to pause if you like. But several recommendations, or actually one major overarching recommendation came out of this, and that was the consideration of lowering the threshold for a shelter within the Go Raleigh, transit network. Currently, and I don't mean to steal your thunder, Matthew, but our policy states that 25 or more boardings per day is what is needed in order to install a shelter. We currently, within that policy, have waivers for facilities that serve seniors and persons with disabilities, such as hospitals or senior centers, things of that nature. We actually waive that requirement. I would also have to say that we waive that requirement also if someone else will build it for us. So if we can get it as part of a roadway project or as part of a development, then certainly we're not going to turn those facilities down. But if we build it with our resources, then we have this current threshold. The good news is that we're reaching the point where we're going to meet our threshold here before long. And you'll see some alternatives for continuing the good work that's been done so far well into the future. So Matthew, I'll turn it over to you.
Excuse me, David, what do you mean we're going to meet our threshold pretty soon? What threshold are you talking about that we're going to meet?
For every stop that has 25 or more boardings per day, we will have a shelter.
Okay, so that you're saying you will have met the 25 plus
Correct.
shelters, okay. I just didn't know what you were talking about.
That's right.
Before I let you get into the presentation, because I want us to be fully focused on and able to ask questions, I'm going to allow public comment. I apologize, but I just want to let that go through and make sure respect the time of folks who are coming to speak. I apologize. So the first person to speak is Aisha Madison. Thank you for coming. We give folks 3 minutes to speak. If you wouldn't mind, please give us your address as well, for the record.
Okay, my address, 2440 Centennial Ridge Way, apartment 104, Raleigh, North Carolina, 27603.
Thank you. Go ahead.
All right, I come here with some concerns for Go Raleigh Transit, mainly with the employees within. I've started with Go Raleigh as one of their transit ambassadors about roughly 4 years ago. And I've worked with some good people in that organization, really good people. Around that time, I struggled with my own disabilities, and both bus drivers and internal employees went out of their way to help me. That's how I became inspired to start with Go Raleigh. But since being in there, there's been good things I've witnessed and things I really believe need to be addressed. And there have been attempts to address it at the managerial level within Go Raleigh, but to me, the situation's gotten so bad, for lack of a better word, that I feel it needs to be addressed at this level at this moment. From my own experience, in my own case, it was an attempt to apply to Go Raleigh to become a bus operator, but this time it was through TransDev's transfer policy. Since I worked at another TransDev location, I encountered a lot of problems trying to transfer there to become a bus operator. It was mainly with the Human Resources Department. I tried to resolve it at that level, and I'm gonna keep this brief because I'm still trying to resolve it. And in case it could be resolved within TransDev or at this level, I don't wanna go any further just in case. But briefly, I tried speaking with the Human Resources manager. She told me what to do about how to transfer. I would find out from the corporate HR director, Kessie Dorner, that the policy she quoted to me was an outdated one. Long story short, I spoke with my own HR manager about sending my information to Kessie Dorner. My previous records at Go Raleigh would be sent to Ms. Laura Bass. The decision would rest with Kessie Dorner according to their updated transfer policy. And I was told I did not qualify, and Kessie related to me the reasons that were stated by Laura, and that's where the trouble came from. She said Laura Bass was the one who claimed I did not qualify, and I told her that the information I have records, information proving that I did qualify for transfer, but despite trying to work it out with Laura on Kessie's direction, Laura continued to stall and go around the process of trying to get this resolved. And the experience I had was best described as employment discrimination. It was shocking for me because, again, I've worked with a lot of good people in this organization, and I do not know why it happened. I don't know what was going on, but I got complete runaround towards that issue. And the last thing I want to address, since I only have 3 minutes, since I've made some good friends there, and I've seen personally what they go through at Go Raleigh Transit. And also because I've worked with some managers there, I feel like this thing can be resolved where there's no longer division within this organization. Because I've seen its capacity to do so many good things, both for the city of Raleigh and for passengers. And it's obvious that within the last couple of months, there's been too much division, too much us versus them, too much of everything, even finding its way at the city of Raleigh level. I'm just asking for the RTA, not just for what happened to me, but please, if whatever's within your capacity, to please step in and help the city of Raleigh, Go Raleigh, resolve these issues with management and their bus operators. Because the fear of retaliation, this is why this room is empty. There's not many bus operators here. It's because the fear of retaliation is real, and they're afraid to speak up. Even though I feel like, there really isn't no reason they should be afraid of this. That this is part of their job. That Transit Authority is part of it, TransDev is part of it, and I'm hoping for a positive resolution on both ends so that Go Raleigh can be, since we were voted the best transit system in 2018, I want that to be true on the inside and the outside, because this is one of the best transit systems I've ever been to in my 5 years being here in Raleigh. That's basically what I came here to address. All right, thank you.
Thank you for coming up and making your statement.
We can't answer anything?
Please, we will address in committees. If you would like to bring that up in a committee, I think that's perfectly fine. The next speaker is Dwight Spencer.
Good afternoon, Transit Authority members.
Please state your address.
My name's Dwight Spencer, 205 Fayetteville Street, Suite 220. And I'm going to ask, Mr. Chair, if I can get 1 or 2 minutes over. And I'm going to be very respectful of my time. And I want to say thank you. The last time this meeting was held on September the 19th at Go Raleigh headquarters. I was gonna speak, and until I was abruptly asked to leave, but because I had surgery on my throat, I wasn't gonna speak that much and that loud, and thank God that I had no cancer on my throat, so I'm able to speak. But I'm gonna ask Ms. Gail to pass this around. I didn't about bring any copies. Could pass that around on September the 19th. Huh? No, this is something else. You got copies? Okay, that's cool. Yeah. On September the 19th, when I was at Go Raleigh, even though I had a trespass against me because of a confrontation that myself and another bus operator had when I was nowhere near a bus or on a bus when the confrontation occurred, which we was on the sidewalk. He was on the sidewalk smoking a cigarette, and we got into a personal confrontation. That's number one. Number two, when the city transit staff moved the meeting from here to Go Raleigh headquarters, they knew I was coming to speak. And that was a setup for me, okay? Basically, that's the way I looked at it, and retaliation from management, because there are many spaces in this building that they could have held the Transit Authority meeting, okay? So I think they really put a whammy over y'all. So when I get out there, I sit there listening to the agenda. Some of you was there, you witnessed it. Mr. Matthew McCall called the police. The police came. I left with no problem whatsoever. And the police asked the question, what was you doing when you were in there? I said, listening to the agenda, preparing myself to speak. September the 19th, a week later, Matthew McCall signed a second-degree trespass against me and said that I determined I refused to leave, which is not true. I left. He signed a second-degree trespass against me a week after September the 19th, and if you wanted me arrested, you should have did it the day of when the police was there. The police witnessed me leave the premises. That was pure retaliation against a citizen. And when you moved the meeting to Go Raleigh headquarters, that meeting was officially open to the public, and I was a part of the public, and the trespass had never been activated. That's the way it is, and that's the truth. I should never be trespassed at this point from Go Raleigh, Hub, or the transit system, because the management and their own personal police officer, Rouse, trespassed me, and I have not been to court. We've been to court 2 times. My attorney have subpoenaed the tapes. The tapes don't lie. This bus driver said I touched him with my body, which that's not true. We have subpoenaed the tapes. We have not yet received the tapes. But at the same time, I've been coming before y'all since December of last year. And everything I say is accurate. I'm not going to come before you and say anything that's not accurate. I had a problem with Mr. Morris Cook being appointed by City Councilman Corey Branch. And when Councilman Branch called me and stated that to me...
Please keep your comments
I will keep it
about
okay,
your issues and not about specific members.
Okay, thank you. Well, the bottom line is, if I could, Mr. Chair, the safety manager violated a rule of transit policy with firearms. He went to a Go Raleigh bus competition called the rodeo. I have the police report, but I could not put it up on my phone, from Wilmington, North Carolina, and I'm not asking you to go outside of any charters that have been chartered before you by the city council. He had a gun on site, the gun which was stolen from a hotel. I have the serial number, police report, and everything. He violated a serious rule which manned automatic termination, firearms, and lethal weapon control. Management turned their heads on this. This safety manager should have been immediately fired, because if he would have been a bus operator, that bus operator would have been dismissed automatically. I did call Human Resource. I did read the policy to Human Resource. And I did send an email to the Transdev, Mr. Dirk Bruin. It's my understanding he's no longer with Transdev. But bottom line is, it's time now that this move on. I'm not coming before you because they trying to make me look like I'm the bad guy. I'm 60 years old. I've never had any problem with transit or anything. I love the transit. I think we have the best transit in the state of North Carolina. I've never had any problem with transit in all of my years of being here in Raleigh. Until I'm gonna shut it down.
Well, I'll give you 5 minutes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Until I began to advocate for these bus operators and these new routes came in. It's a retaliation against me, not only against the bus operators. And I'm asking that the trespass should be lifted upon me, because I have not been to court yet, and it should be lifted. It's not right and it's not fair. I'm not standing here, Mr. Spencer, because I want to retaliate against anybody. It's the management that need to be, and I'm asking with bus operators of North Carolina, and if it does not, Mr. Matthews, we will march on the street, we will march down to Raleigh Transit Authority and City Council.
I appreciate your comments. We need to move on with business. I appreciate it.
I'm asking that you please consider to listen, and please, I'm going to sit down, and please consider that Mr. David Eaton and Mr. Moore need to begin the process of asking Transdev to replace management at Go Raleigh on Poole Road, because it's necessarily, like this young lady said, the bus operators are not here because of fear of retaliation.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nathan. Thank you, board authority members.
All right, I apologize. We're going to pick up back with the transit stop amenities presentation. Thank you to the public comments. We appreciate it, and we will take up issues in our committees.
Okay. Well, thank you. Good afternoon. So for this action item, I'm going to provide some background on bus stop improvements and present what the recommended action is. So this item was referred to the Finance and Policy Committee back on June 13th. It was discussed at 2 meetings of the Finance and Policy Committee, and from there we determined a recommendation for you today. So current inventory of Go Raleigh stops, so we have about 1,400 stops across the system. Currently 172 have a shelter and a bench, 108 have a bench alone. So we have about 21% of our system that has an amenity of some kind. We've launched a public-facing web map in order for you to track bus stop amenities. It's available at the link at the top of the page. At this zoomed-out view, it's a little hard to see, but the red squares are our existing transit shelters, and the orange is our planned. And when you zoom in a little bit more, all of the stops come into view, where you can select the stop, see what amenities exist there, and some other details about the stop. So,
I apologize. Are those all the stops, or all those stops with shelters that are on there?
At this view, it is all the stops with shelters existing or planned. Yep.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to cover a little bit the different paths that we can upgrade our stops. First, we have our stops associated with new service. So all new bus stops should be built to an ADA standard. To achieve that, we pour a 30-foot concrete strip between the curb and the sidewalk. Also, beyond that, for new service sites, based on the surrounding land uses, what level of service is provided at the stop, such as if it's a transfer point or a time point, we designate those for upgrading to a transit shelter. Next, we have city, street, and sidewalk projects, also streetscaping projects, traffic calming projects. So whenever the footprint of one of those city projects cover a bus stop, we work with engineering services to see what improvements we can make there. So in terms of incorporating these bus stop improvements into a larger project, it's very cost efficient, and it allows us to tackle some of those more difficult sites. For example, if there's more difficult terrain issues or more connectivity that we have to solve. Then we have new development sites. So with the UDO, a transit shelter, the developer is required to install a transit shelter under certain conditions. And transit staff is involved in the development review process there.
Can I ask, when it is a new development, say like a private development, is the city pay for it, or does the developer pay for it?
The developer pays for it.
Okay.
The last is what we're focused on today, which is our existing stops. So currently our policy, as David mentioned, is 25 average daily boardings warrants a shelter, and 10 average daily boardings warrants a bench. So this is the policy that we are going to look at today for revising. And what our progress is with our current policy of 25 average daily boardings and above. Current ridership shows that we have 103 stops that fall into that group. 72 have a shelter built. 10 are in design or in real estate or construction. We have 6 of those that are in downtown. So we're not currently developing those sites with a shelter. So that leaves us with 15 remaining bus stops to develop. So we're well on our way to accomplishing the 25 and above average daily boardings, and that is one of the big factors why we are talking about revising the policy. So one big factor in revising the policy is, do we have the funds available for a new target? So this is just a high level of what funds we have available going from FY20 to FY24. The Wake Transit revenue allocates $7.6 million to the Go Raleigh system for bus stop improvements. That's new and existing. And we've also been awarded, most recently in FY20, from LAP $2 million. And these are those same figures programmed out over the fiscal years.
So you know what LAP is? LAP is competitive funding through the MPO. It is funds that are allowed to be flexed, what traditionally may be highway funds, over to a transit purpose, or that may be used for both. 2 examples are STPDA and then CMAQ, which is congestion mitigation air quality. Anyway, the MPO does allow us to annually compete with our other transit peers throughout our MPO area for those funds. And so in that particular year, we were able to, there was $2 million available, and we're able to secure the full $2 million.
Do you foresee more lab funds in the future?
That is correct. He'll talk, or Matthew's going to talk a little bit more about long-term budget here in a moment. But we would want to strategically think about what projects, those LAP projects, may be able to help and where the greatest need is. I would never say that there's anything in greater need than a bus shelter, but we may have, because of timing for construction, it may be better to actually request those funds for some other project. I would say that we are committed to apply annually for those funds for a project that will enhance the passenger experience within our transit system.
And let's see. So another factor we considered is how much ridership are we impacting with these bus stop improvements. So this is a chart that breaks down the bus stops into the different categories. So on the left there, we have our current policy, 25 and above. Then we go down to 20, 15, and 10, and the number of bus stops that falls into each of those. So for example, in the 25 and above category, that represents 8% of the stops across our system. We have 72% of our ridership visit stops in that category. As you look across the rows, you can see as we go from 25, 20 to 15 to 10, you see a pretty proportional increase in the percentage of stops and percentage of ridership all the way until we get to 10 plus. So you can kind of see it. Both of them tick up 3 to 4% through each category. Where you see the change is when you go to 5 plus, we get a lot more stops, but the ridership's not going up quite as much. And so, in other words, when we get lower than 10 plus is kind of when we get to our diminishing return point with upgrading the stops. And so that's why the 10 plus number has been highlighted there. Like we said, the other factor is financial. This table breaks down where we're at in the development, each of the groups. So in the 10 plus, we have 123 sites built out, 32 in development, and about 100 remaining. And at an average cost of $30,000, that would be about $3 million for a cost for the remaining. And so, given the factor that we've built out many of the sites at 25 plus, that 10 plus looks to be a good point before a diminishing return, and that we have the funds available, To accomplish it, we are recommending the policy be revised to 10+ average daily boardings. So some of the impacts of that, so that would be 100 more bus stops eligible for a shelter and bench. Like I showed, about $3 million to build out. And how I mentioned, this would fall under fiscal constraints. The estimated funding we need for new service stops in FY20 to FY24 is around $4.2 million. And finally, when complete, the percentage of riders with a transit shelter would increase from that 72% at 25+ to 86% of our riders having a stop with a shelter with the new policy. So this would be the policy recommendation. So a shelter and bench is warranted at bus stops where there are at least 10 boardings a day on average. Are there any questions?
If folks don't mind, I'm gonna start with mine. Is there a study impact on ridership with regards to shelters? Is there knowledge on how that affects existing or new attraction to ridership?
That's a good question.
I would say from our experience in the past, it's a little bit more difficult to tie it to new ridership because those fluctuations are across the entire network there. But we do see or have seen in the past where either near side or far side stops from a shelter will actually, they're going to diminish. So the likelihood of 2 stops with 25 or more boardings a day next to each other or with a single stop between them, I mean, people are going to walk to the stop that has, if that makes sense, to where the shelter is. So.
The other thing you might want to recall is that the last customer satisfaction survey, the number one point of dissatisfaction was the frequency of weekend service or the lack of frequency, but number 2 was bus stop amenities for dissatisfaction. So I think capturing or accommodating a greater portion of the ridership would be seen as a very positive thing.
That's a great point too, yes, from a customer satisfaction point. It does always show up in our top 3 to 5 comments every time.
And also, I just want to say it was public comment just about the transit in general. And I've been following this in so many public meetings for years and years.
Really?
Just the perception, yes, really, and so have you. The perception, I think the perception of the Go Raleigh system and the service we provide will be elevated by providing more shelters, because I hear people, and I know a lot of people don't even ride the bus, who complain that, we're really, it's harmful to people who don't have the benefit of a shelter. So and it's consistently been a high priority concern for years. So I think I wholeheartedly support this. I think it's, and you've justified it, so good job.
One slide doesn't support your argument. The one that went across the bottom, the one before you, the one that the cost, the slide before the cost. The next, go back one more. Yeah, that one doesn't really support your argument, but I am all in favor of the 10%. 10+. The next slide is very supportive of your argument, so you should hang your hat on that one, because the difference between 5 and 10 is just disproportionately high. So I because of that slide and the fact that 10, we're trying to increase the number of shelters, because we've gone from no shelters to now to the point of at least 10 a day where you're going to have a shelter. I'm all in favor of that. So but I appreciate Nathan's question, because as the economy shifts around and stuff like that, people are going to want to know the bigger bang for the buck, the return on investment piece. So as you go forward, maybe you can start tracking that, so when people like Nathan ask that question, rather than not really be able to handle it, you can have some data to support it. You know what I'm saying?
I think another thing people have to keep in mind, the 10 boardings qualifies for a bench already, right?
That's right.
So the $30,000 cost for a stop with the shelter, Most of that is for the concrete and site work. The shelter is only maybe like 5 or 6. So it's not a big delta to go from a stop with a bench to a stop with a shelter.
Well, after, because you said 30 feet, but I didn't hear the width of the 30 feet by what?
Yeah, so our frontage between the back of curb to the sidewalk, that's 30 feet with or without a shelter or any amenity. That provides a level landing pad for a passenger at a stop.
So that's like
So
2 or
that's
3 feet.
Yeah, that's like a basic amenity. Depending upon the code, some areas require a 6-foot planter. Some of our old traditional streets have a 2 to 3 foot planter. So we're doing that 30 feet. So when you get on at the front door or the back door, or your exit from a back door, you're always on concrete. Behind the sidewalk, we're actually looking at a 15 by 20 pad. So that's kind of our standard detail. If you go on the city's website, our standard detail for all of our shelters is there. Our standard detail for a bench is also there, which is actually a smaller footprint. Traditionally, we haven't sought the bench standard to date because we've been behind on shelters. But now that's also going to take, we're lowering that threshold. So we're really going to, we may actually do away with that bench threshold because, as was stated by Mr. Stevenson, by the time you go through that entire effort to put a bench down, you may as well have put a shelter because the mobilization, the shelter, and everything else, that little bit of extra concrete really is not a big cost. So we'll continue to look at those. If there are other circumstances where a bench is required or requested through some type of residential request, we can look at those on a one-on-one basis.
So
I
do we
can't say
need
that
to-
those have ever happened before, but you
Do
know.
we need to do away with the bench for 10 plus riders altogether and replace it with the shelter?
At this point, we would be, we would recommend moving forward with the shelter threshold, and that would be the policy that,
So that
was just
mixes the
shown.
bench policy. for
That is
10.
correct.
Now, with regards to new service, when we put in new service, those stops, are they automatically get shelters?
We try to distribute assets throughout new service, such as our new service on Barwell, Pole Road, and Rock Quarry. A number of those are programmed for facilities, but that actually was part of our package of funding that came for the implementation of that service. Again, we are building some facilities, as he mentioned, outside of this normal process. But as far as existing stops, would be our policy.
Okay.
New stops, again, what we're looking for is stops that would complement existing public facilities, whether it's churches, libraries, medical facilities, senior centers, things of that nature. They're the first on the list, and then we're trying to also, large pedestrian sheds, such as subdivisions, things of that nature.
And if we move on this, the 2.9 million that's required, is that something that we're going to request in our next budget, or is that going to be an amendment to Wake Transit?
So that is with the allocation of LAP funding, along with our annual allocation of formula funds towards this project. That is achievable through our current financial projections.
So what year is the build out for the 10 plus? Then is that fiscal year 23, 22? Where is the, because I don't see the 2.9 million unless I'm missing something.
So the total available through FY24 for passenger amenities is 9.6. And if you think about moving forward in 21 and 22, you see the 1.9 and the 1.1. That's that is available. So we actually have about 3.1 available in FY21 and 22.
So this is going to be built out in 22 or 23?
I hate to put a time frame on it, but right now we seem to be on a pace where we can install about 50 facilities a year. So I'm thinking that a couple of physical years we should be able to knock this out.
Okay. I got that too. this is something that we have the funds to do. It's not going to sacrifice any of the other build out that we need to do in terms of growth. Okay.
And let me check with Matthew. Matthew, is that a fair statement? That's putting a lot of pressure on you. 50 a year, no pressure. But generally speaking, with design and construction, we're about, I would say 40 to 50 a year. Fair statement?
That's fair.
Okay.
I tell you, considering where we're coming from, that's quite a remarkable
Absolutely.
accomplishment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that this needs to be, personally, I think that this needs to be a priority. I think that if we're going to attract ridership, this needs to be there, as well as the fact that if we're putting in new routes with amenities, we need to be taking care of our existing
They need to
ridership as
be
well.
sheltered. The new. That's our marketing tool.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it would be nice if the shelters were beautiful.
I agree.
Oh, I don't even know about the aesthetics part. But I keep thinking about the News Observer when they put that article out there about the bus stop was a turned over sideways shopping cart. And when you think about what that said to the public and then where we are now, speaks a lot, speaks volumes of where we're, how serious we've gotten about rubber tire transportation and accommodating the riders.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All right.
Just very quickly, so what is the upkeep of these shelters? Is there a cost for that, calculated in this, and keeping them clean and taken care of? How does that figure into the cost?
So for our expansion areas through the Wake Transit Plan, that's actually a line item cost, which is the upkeep of bus stops and shelters, ongoing maintenance. For our existing system, we have a policy of we pressure wash the concrete in the shelters twice annually, after the spring season with the pollen, and then in the wintertime after the fall leaf season as well. And then we have an ongoing process with solid waste services for trash receptacle pickup, as well as Go Raleigh has a right-of-way crew that installs shelters and actually does and responds to things such as accidents that may damage a shelter, or if there's some other activity which would require us to pay attention maintenance-wise to a shelter. So we do program that annually, and is an ongoing expense.
That's in another budget other than the one that we were looking at here.
That is purely capital budget, but those activities are in our operating budget.
All right. So I'm going to make a motion for a shelter and bench to be warranted at every bus stop where there are at least 10 boardings a day on average for the existing system.
Second.
All right, I'm sorry. It's new to me to be in charge. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed or abstain? All right.
I'm
It
not
passes.
used to the chair making motions.
I would like to recommend to staff that, David, if you think it's appropriate, that we pursue this as for publicity, for some marketing. This is a major change. I think it would be really positive PR for Go Raleigh.
And I don't get the seat very often, so I'm going to use it and ask that maybe in that marketing you show a picture of a nice big red shelter that should be put out quite a bit, and if anyone asks, they can look at the videotape and not fire you. And
What's with the red shelter?
What's our new shelter?
the new ones that the city council has resisted in implementing out that we have and we paid for, that went through 2 years of.
There are two on Blue Ridge Road in front of the North Carolina Museum of Art.
Are you satisfied with them?
They turned out very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very nice.
So when you do the marketing, you go from shopping cart to these big red
There you
things.
go.
You know it's a good plan when you get laughter from the audience. All right, moving on to FY20 service changes for Title VI Service Equity Analysis with staff.
Yes, so we can go into as little or as much detail as you would like. As in past practices, whenever we do a service change and it meets a minimum threshold and is called a major service change, we are required to do a Title VI analysis on that service. What that's looking at is any disparities in the service that we may provide. Or will that service impact low-income or minority communities in how we're redirecting our resources? The particular report that was provided was a summary of our FY20 service changes as they have been implemented. We request that the board, again, we can provide a presentation, some background or additional information on that. But again, it is one of our federal processes, and historically the board has endorsed that report, and we keep that report on file and make sure that that is available for any further review. I'm going to defer real quick because I'm not sure exactly how much information we may have available for that particular item, but I'm going to ask Morgan very quickly. If they wanted information, what level? And you can come on down.
It was in our packet.
It was in our packet. I don't know about others. I read through it. It was fairly thorough and was it came out pretty good. I will say I did have the only one that struck as sort of some concern is Nightdale, but it seems that the equity factor is benefited by both other options and the fact that we are having future service in there, and I would highly encourage that we find ways to get that future service to folks sooner rather than later, including a transit center. But that's nothing new.
Well, somebody this is finance committee stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Michael?
Yeah.
So what's the skinny?
At the last meeting, we did review this report, and in my opinion, it was done very professionally, and there was the one potential issue that was raised, but overall, we felt that it was it was done properly, and that they had looked into all the potential areas that might be problems and reconciled all of them.
I'm looking at a number, it baffles me a little bit. The minority population in Raleigh is over almost 50%. 209,000 out of 449. Really? Okay.
I don't do the census.
Huh?
I don't know. I don't do the census.
No. Well, I just 46% really, but that's right. But then what defines minority population? Huh?
Right.
I mean, that probably is a broad term. It's a federal term. This is a federal report, so we're following federal guidelines. We'll be glad to provide some detail or backup on.
I was just curious.
If you were. Unfortunately, I don't have that information right this moment.
Okay.
I'd just like to make a motion that we state that we appreciate all of Morgan's hard work on this, and that we move to accept the report.
If that's how it's supposed to go, Nathan. So moved.
Is that a second?
Second.
Is that a second, Danny?
I reckon.
Is there any more discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion passes. Next item of business is Transit Asset Management Plan. Similar, I believe this is a federal requirement.
That is correct. So part of our, or a new national Federal Transit Administration initiative is really transit asset management. I think everybody's familiar with transit systems nationally that have let their assets deteriorate over time. And that's created, quite honestly, a crisis for some of our larger transit networks within the U.S. So really, this requirement has filtered from those types of overarching problems all the way down for every transit system that is federally funded in the United States. Our transit asset management plan requires us to come up with metrics and goals for maintaining our assets. That includes our facilities and our rolling stock. I would like to say that certainly from both of those perspectives, we're in good shape. We're working on our paratransit facility. From a facility standpoint, that's the only facility right now that is really not meeting the mark for us as far as quality and ongoing projections for use. But certainly if we, on our bus fleet, we have a 12-year service life on a bus, and our average fleet age currently, I think, is 6.2 years. So if you can get much more in the median, which is where you want to be, you never want a new fleet because a new fleet gets old at the same time. And obviously you never want an old fleet. So if you can stay at 6 years average age, you're always exactly where you need to be. Again, this is for your consideration. This is a document that we must provide to the Federal Transit Administration to be eligible for ongoing grant and other federal activities.
I'll just add, we reviewed this in committee, and in addition to everything David said, I was impressed with the thoroughness and level of detail, because I think in addition to fulfilling a mandate by the feds, it also is a great planning tool as you look forward in time and planning for capital outlay. I think it's a really good tool, and staff did a great job with it.
All right. Is there other,
Gary?
are there any motions?
Your turn.
Move approval. I mean, what is it?
Make a motion to endorse it?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, bylaws. Or anything else. I'm going to let you drift. So.
I did make some notes from our last meeting, and I missed the, I missed the work session due to my vacation. But in committee, we did discuss it, and I know that it's kind of gone back and forth somewhat. But I thought David made some very good points as to why it should be considered. One, as has been mentioned here today, the transit system is expanding and its profile is being raised in the public eye. So it's like, it's increasingly, week by week is something that more people are paying attention to. So I think, and much more funding is flowing into the system. So all of that inevitably leads to more public scrutiny of what we do. And so I think that suggests that having a more formalized structure is something that would be good for us to have as we go forward and make decisions. So the more I thought about it, I thought it's something that should be something we give consideration to.
All right, so was there a draft or anything put together, or was this just, or looked at, that the board can?
Well,
This going to be further discussed in committee?
Yeah, there were precedents assembled that I thought were very helpful, and a table put together as to which items, which areas are, covered in bylaws under different scenarios. And I thought that was very helpful. I think that might have been shared in a work session. But the discussion was that we would, staff was going to create a draft. And if I get anything wrong, please correct me, but that staff was going to create a draft, and then we were going to review that in committee and then bring to the full board for further discussion.
All right, correct.
So they still have yet to, your committee will be
We
reviewing
didn't
the
have a
first
meeting
draft.
this month, so that was
Okay.
a meeting before.
All right, great. I don't, we're not going to vote on anything. That's committee business. Rick?
Nothing, no action for today, but I guess the takeaway is it's still alive, and in my view, based on our discussions, is something that we should take up in the future.
Awesome, cool.
Okay.
And lighting. There was some conversation about bus stop lighting.
Lighting was something that was raised, I believe, by Councilman Thompson. And
Councilman who?
Dickie Thompson.
Oh, okay.
It's my understanding. And so we discussed some of the technical aspects of that. And so in some areas, there's just the ambient lighting provided by, street lights. But some areas, in maybe a little more, less traveled areas, they don't necessarily have that coverage with the street poles, so they can be quite dark. The other thing to keep in mind is that our current standard for bus stops does not include electrical service. So we don't have power to the stop, so you could just, install a light fixture. So what was reported is that in the areas where they're dark, they have had just solar panel powered lights installed to help raise the foot candle.
How's that working?
They are rather economical ones. They're not like maybe the highest grade that you could get, but I understand that they certainly help and provide a reasonable level of light. But what I suggested was going forward, and this is more of a long term, I think we should be, as we look at constantly upgrading the system, I think that at some point in time we should give consideration to actually electrifying the stops, so you can have a permanent, light source there. But that's for further down the road, and I think that it's something that, in the interim, we should look to solutions such as the battery or the solar-powered ones to take care of the worst-case areas where it's dark.
Was there? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. I was just curious on those areas where the bus stop is dark. If we light that area, what about transit to there? If the area and the bus stop is lit, but every place else trying to get there is dark, then have we really addressed the issue?
It's an excellent point, and I agree. The issue becomes that when the utility system, meaning the power distribution and the poles, don't create that coverage, it's really not within our, say, purview or budget to accommodate it. I think it is a bigger issue. But
Well, how about the city's public lighting? Do we coordinate with that division at all?
Yeah, so you can see on page 89, it describes our processes to date. Our coordination with Dustin Bryce, which runs our lighting program within transportation and works very closely with Duke Energy. So we follow all of those existing processes to bring as much light as we can to shelters. As was stated, we have put out solar lighting at stops and shelters where we thought that was needed, where overhead lighting was not possible. But again, I think that lighting may be something that we address within policy as a goal and not as a hard rule, because every situation is different depending upon where that is.
But you know,
so it is
pushing
challenging.
Livable streets
Yep.
and walkable communities, and I think we should have maybe it's not in our jurisdiction, there should be some coordinated effort to make sure we have adequate street lights in these communities where we're trying to put people on sidewalks to walk.
Well,
and
we're
these are
about
big-
to spend
they're-
$3 million on new.
I mean, and aren't we
Shelters.
already, don't we already coordinate? It's not like
Yes.
we're doing this in a vacuum.
Yeah, exactly.
With
So,
others.
yeah, most definitely. Some of our more suburban areas are the areas really where it's more challenging. Those areas don't have sidewalk. I would say that, and I don't have statistics on this, but I would say our areas that have sidewalk connections are certainly lit to a high frequency. Those suburban areas where we don't have those pedestrian sidewalk connections, where that infrastructure just hasn't matured yet, are the areas that we're struggling. But as our network is continuing to expand, because our our ridership and our citizens want additional service, even in areas that haven't reached that maturity for that infrastructure, that's where it becomes tough for us. We're, like I say, we're addressing that in many different ways, working with Duke Energy to have existing poles have a brighter light, installing new poles with light where warranted, and in those areas where that's just not possible, we're installing solar panels on shelters to provide auxiliary light where other light isn't available. So again, it's a multifaceted approach to solve a problem, and we're going to continue to do that. The initial question from our council member, and it was Council Member Thompson, was, do we have a policy regarding the amount of light that is required in an existing stop? And the short answer was no, we didn't really have a policy, but we did have some general recommendation, and we have recommendation through a couple of different things, through existing roadway lighting standards, as well as kind of a internal transit. Just some of our manuals have a recommendation as well. So it's really kind of trying to maybe not develop, again, a hard policy regarding lighting, but strategies to address lighting, if that makes sense. And so we're going to continue to, I think, massage that and bring back a final product.
And I think you reported that staff does have a photometer, and they go around to these areas and do measure the foot candle level to find out if there are problem areas.
That is correct.
I'd love to see the committee take up some form of, maybe in the next budget, looking to request funding for better lighting at some of these stops, and maybe also pushing the council to put some money and energy into first and last mile lighting and access, because if we're spending $3 million on new shelters on existing spots, and we're going to try to sell a transit system, and I was just looking through here, and service to new areas is going to end at 10 o'clock in some places, midnight in others. We need to be able to get folks safely to and from stops.
Phosphorus paint.
Not to my knowledge. We're moving incrementally in the right direction. It was just, I think, about a year or so ago when we revised our development standards to require the bus stops. As it used to be you only had to provide parking for site plan review. So finally now developers have to provide accommodation for transit. So I think we got to get there, but it even gets to roadway standards, and pedestrian accommodation and lighting. So yeah, we are moving, maybe not as quickly as we'd like, but that, I think, we'll get there.
Appreciate it. All right, marketing.
Okay, couple of things from our last meeting in September. We discussed plans for advertising, for encouraging citizens to take the bus to the state fair, and an advertising campaign for that. I did email out to, at least to the members of the marketing committee, some of the ads that we were doing to promote taking the bus and the park and ride opportunities. And the ads were both in English and Spanish. We also, because September, we started our new services to Rollsville, Garner, and Knightdale. The staff participated and worked with the public information staff for those municipalities, as well as Raleigh, in helping promote the fact that we've got these new services and improved services to those three municipalities. And that those outdoor, I'm looking at some of the lists of things that we're doing. Some of those activities are continuing into this month.
New services start Monday.
They start Monday? Oh, they didn't start in September?
No.
Oh, okay. Got that wrong.
So how are we going to monitor the reception or any of the metrics that we need to look at? What's in place for that?
For new services?
Yeah.
So all of our services in your monthly report, you have actual ridership. We break that down into a financially as well as
I know
a
that
mileage
part, but,
standpoint.
Are we gonna be getting customer feedback on them also? You know,
Yeah,
with
so
the riding, that's the customer feedback.
That's probably our biggest voter is with ridership, most definitely. But we can certainly deploy. We just finished up our annual survey of our riders by route. So I think we presented that at the last meeting, or
So the people that were taking the express from Nightdale into downtown Raleigh,
yes.
we don't know yet how they're gonna feel about this thing yet, because we're doing away with the express, right?
That is correct.
Mm-hmm.
That is correct. More frequent service all day and broader service.
Oh, yeah,
but the
I
express,
got it. but
understand.
I got it. Okay.
And one thing, and I should have said this at the very beginning of my report. If you haven't already met her, Andrea Epstein is our new senior communications liaison, and I am thrilled.
Photographer.
Pardon me?
And photographer.
And photographer. Well, she's doing a lot more than that, or will be doing a lot more than that. I am thrilled that we've got this new position filled, and we're looking forward to working with Andrea. In fact, Tallulah Payne and I are going to meet with her later this month to kind of talk about sort of some of the visions and hopes and dreams of the marketing committee, and hear some of her ideas as well of how we can help meet the challenge of how do we continue to really publicize all of these new services, and there are going to be more to come over the coming years, and how do we also work to build ridership. So she's got a lot of important work to do, and we're looking forward to working with her. And I guess sort of one of the things I wanted to say first and foremost that I do want to talk about with her is how do we continue to promote even these new services, in the short term as well as the long term, besides, in addition to going out to the communities for, just a few events. Also, the TDM staff has been continuing to go out and meeting with both folks in the community and also in workplaces to promote the use of public transit. And finally, the thing I was really super excited about, we had asked, we're all interested in building ridership and ways that we can do that. And we invited Go Triangle staff to come and present to the marketing committee, but it was, not many people were there, so not everyone got to see the presentation. But the summary is, and the really awesome news is that Go Triangle is working on behalf and in coordination with Go Raleigh, Go Cary, Go Durham, in a marketing campaign that they are calling the My Better Way to Go campaign. And this is going to be a multifaceted campaign of digital ads, television ads, radio ads, and print. I can't recall if there's print. But in any event, featuring actual transit riders in these different markets. And the whole purpose of this is to really be encouraging people to actually use the bus. And do we have the videos?
Is there a video that all of us and the
Super.
2 people that are watching at home can see?
So and these videos were produced actually in-house by Go Triangle staff. And I was pretty darn impressed with them. And so in any event, it's just going to be, it's kicking off around now.
It just kicked off.
It just kicked off. And hopefully we're all going to be seeing these images in different locations. So.
Okay, hopefully I can.
And are we going to see the 3 short videos?
I just had to put it in Word. That was the only
We
way I
have-
could remember it.
I think there were 3 videos that we
That is
saw.
correct. I believe all 3 of them will show, yes.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the webpage that they.
It's a pretty slick
The landing page
website.
for it. And, alrighty, so I can start with this one.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, there's a website.
I'm Billy. I've been a high school teacher and a coach for nearly 20 years. Helping students find their path is what I love the most, so I decided to become a school counselor. I was prepared for the work of grad school, but I was completely unprepared for the stress of the daily commute. Finding a bus route that works for me has been a real game changer. On the bus, I get time back to read assignments or relax. I'm Billy, and this is my stress-free way to go. I'm Billy.
I'm Phineas, and I'm a musician. While studying jazz in Paris and Seattle, I took transit and walked everywhere. When I moved back home to Durham, I didn't have a car, so I've been taking the bus. It gets me where I need to go, like gigs and teaching lessons, and it saves me money too. Making music, I feel like I see people's true emotions. Riding the bus, I feel like I see my community. I'm Phineas, and this is my reliable way to go.
I'm Shayna, and I'm passionate about environmental causes. I love making a difference in the world, but I often feel like I'm working just to pay for my car to get to my job. $500 for tires, $600 for insurance, tank of gas every week. It's depressing. Taking the bus makes me happy. I don't have to drive, and I can save money and the environment. I'm Shayna, and this is my affordable way to go.
I want to find out where she's getting paid $600
So
a
where's
year.
the lady
in
with the
insurance.
babies?
I'm sorry. Well, I think they're going to be, recruiting more people to kind of further this campaign. So these are just the first 3.
Nice.
And this
And,
is just a landing.
and these are real people, real riders. And so, yeah, any thoughts or comments or?
Very good. I like them.
Yeah, I liked all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just looking for the lady with the babies.
We'll have to find one just
Okay.
for you. Babies.
The lady
I
with the
prefer,
what?
I for one enjoyed the beard.
The
I'm
babies.
Babies?
Yeah, you know,
kids.
a mother with children trying to ride
Yeah,
around.
yeah. So, well, in any event, this is, and this is really being funded through the Wake Transit Plan, correct? So we're all, this is part of what the half-cent sales tax is being used for, to help publicize.
Well, let me rephrase that,
Yes,
just in
please.
case somebody's watching. Each agency is providing participation for this program, and I can't speak for how each agency is paying for that, but it is each agency is putting an equal amount into this overall effort. So
It's kind of different.
So yay.
Just a little bit of input. I noticed 2 of them said that about not having a car or didn't want a car. I think you want to market to people who also have cars. So in some videos, I don't think you should say that they don't have a car, because you want people to have cars to also, ride the bus
Right.
when they're going to work downtown. So I think that was just a little bit of overlap of saying about, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think as they continue to feature different types of riders, the choice rider would also be one of the ones that they're looking at. But I'll pass that on to the folks at Go Triangle. Thank you. Definitely. So, in any event, as far as how long this campaign's going, I am not certain, but I think it's going to be definitely this fall, and then depending on what kind of, how the response is going there, hopefully it's going to be going into next year as well, and could certainly change over time. And I'm really hoping that they're going to be not only just airing these ads, but they're going to try to get some publicity, some news story about the fact that they're doing this. David's got something to say.
Just real quick, it's not only TV they'll be displaying. There's a lot of digital, like WRAL digital. The video will play. There's radio ads. They're going through iHeartRadio. It's about I believe they said a $90,000 campaign for the first 3 months. Every location they're advertising will be able to provide analytics so that we see if we're getting our money's worth and if they're clicking through to this website to get additional information. And then they'll evaluate and continue to move forward after the first of the year with additional videos. So it's being built to be an ongoing, continuing campaign.
Thanks. And if you think about it, $90,000 is a freaking bargain. I mean, look at the millions we're going to be spending on bus shelters. Not that we shouldn't, but in comparison, if we're really talking about how we're going to build ridership, this is the kind of thing that we need to do and maybe even do more of.
And that's split between Raleigh, Cary, Triangle, and Go Durham.
So,
That's
cheap,
amazing.
cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to see more of this. Thank you. All right, is that?
Well, I would like to encourage my fellow RTA members to help, publicize this. Maybe you want to put it on your Facebook page. Maybe Wake Up Wake County wants to do some PR on it, or the architects, or whoever. Any ways you can send it to your CAC, or
All that good stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
We will. All right. Thank you very much. Is there anything that the staff needs? All right. So I think that it is 5:05. I think we've covered the full agenda.
Well, there was a public engagement update.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know if Morgan had anything to say about that.
Oh, I apologize. I thought that was, you hit that.
Maybe, did I do that? I did that? Okay. All right.
Okay. All right. So I think we can safely wrap up. Thank you all for coming this month.
Can I?
Yeah, please.
Okay. We had a young lady earlier, I'm sorry, I can't remember her name, but she alluded to what we may or may not be able to delve into. And then Dwight and his piece. So are we headed to a point in time where everything is going, that we have our transit administrator, or whatever TransDev is, whatever we should refer to them as. Are we going to get to a place where all this stuff is worked out? Kind of, sort of.
Well, I think that there's, I know that the contract is not up yet with them. I know route committee hosted a couple conversations.
Yeah.
If you feel that it's something that the committee should readdress, you can bring that up and the board can suggest.
Okay. I'd like to bring up one thing then. The young lady spoke of a changing transfer policy. So as a board member, I wrote a note to myself, well, what is the transfer policy? So maybe at our next meeting, somebody can tell us what the transfer policy is.
Well,
Yes, we can do that.
Yeah, we can, as long as we're not stepping into the management role.
Right. I know we're on a very slippery slope here.
But I think that's not inappropriate. I think is that I believe that you would have to make a motion to send something to committee, and I would maybe highly encourage that.
Well, I just want to know what the transfer policy is. That can be a memo. And then once we get it, we can decide whether if it's something we can or cannot even deal with or whatever, but at least people know that we're hearing them, and we're trying to at least do as much as we can without rocking the boat.
All right. And maybe we can discuss that more and pick your brain at route committee on some of those definitions.
Okay, thank you. So, other than that, I'm ready.
All right. Okay, everyone else good? All right, well, thank you all. Thank you, staff. We're adjourned.
Okay.